got to get into this Diddy case, man. So we got to make sure we tread lightly with these conversations. Because like I said, we are under the new guise of the YouTube monetization. But we got to get into this because this was monumental. Like, I don't really like going and just talking about like celebrities and being like proud and saying it. But just from these last 2 days of Cassie being on the stand, like, you kind of just have to give it up for her. Just the poise that she's been. Granted, this isn't, the defense hasn't, discussed these things with her. We're going to break all that down. But just to go up there pregnant, all of the stories that you're having to relive and revisit.
That her husband's in there with her part of it.
Well, they asked him to leave.
Well, yeah, they said that he could be there for part of her testimony, but not another part. So
yeah, so they actually had to ask him to leave from one part, but
because he's testifying as well.
Well, let's just get into just some of the crazy stuff that just happened before everything started. So Diddy's daughters were at the court case.
So there was a lot of discussion about whether his daughters should have been in the courtroom or not, and on one hand, like, they should be there to know the truth, but on the other hand, like, that's disgusting information to have about your own father. What do you think about that? Should they have been there?
Man, I'm just thinking, like, when you put that into consideration, their age and her age, where all this started, them being like a few years apart, like 2 years at the most.
Yeah,
I can understand why people want to be like, well, they need to know what's going on with your dad, but I just think there's sometimes, if you have the ability to shield the youth from stuff like this, you probably should.
Yeah, especially
when they're young girls. They already going to have this stain on them no matter what they do they're about to go to college. Like, they have a whole future ahead of them that this is going to probably be a specter upon.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Just to have their pictures out there showing them with this, and I get it's the support thing, but that's already going to be an additional fuel to the fire. So I just don't think that was just a good idea having them out there. Like I said, granted, they're almost adult, like almost 18, right? They're like 17.
I'm not sure
18.
how old they are, but this is gonna follow them whether they're in the courtroom or not. So I don't think that has too much to do with it. It's just like, should you know in detail what the atrocities that your father is being charged of? I'm not 100% sure. Like, if it's fine if they know that, like, he did bad stuff, but I don't know if I would want to know that, like there was one part that was horrifying. Cassie's testimony was horrifying. But there was one part where, like, 2 people were urinating on her to the point that she choked, like, urinating on her face. And I don't want to know the details about that if that's my dad.
Yeah, what I heard was they made an appearance early on, but then when the male escort was on the stand, they left. So I don't think they even stayed to see Cassie.
Okay, good.
I think they were just there for the preliminaries, the photo ops, and then they took them out of there. So they really didn't get super exposed to it. But granted, they have the internet, so we all saw it.
You can, the threads are on Twitter of, like, what was being said in the courtrooms. And if you want to bring those up really quickly.
Yeah, so shout out.
Can read.
I do want to give a shout out to those people who are doing the good work and are reporting, like, live from the courtroom, because I don't think this is surprising, but the case isn't being covered with cameras in the actual courtroom.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
of course not.
For something of this scale and magnitude, you wouldn't have that. It just wouldn't be something that you can expect. But Inner City Press has been holding it down. They have had pretty much a lot of details that they've kind of highlighted with this. They aren't the only ones that's been doing this, but this is the one who I've kind of been following. So we may have missed some certain things, but just the stuff that he's outlined, from just the fact of her calling the freak offs a job, where she was like, that was more what she was doing than anything else creatively. Yeah,
she said that was the only time that she had alone time with him too, which is sad.
Like, it's just wild. Just thinking again, we just kind of piece about the timeline, because that's kind of what they did here. They really just outlined her life with him, but then also really went into detail, because there was a lot of people who were discussing this and they were kind of being critical of Cassie and saying, like, oh, I don't feel like any of this showed any crime. It just showed that he was a nasty man. Because, like, I'm gonna read some more of this breakdown, but I think
that's the main argument that's gonna come out of this case. Like, is being freaked out a crime? And that's not the only thing he's being charged with.
And I think what people gotta understand, like, when it comes to, like, racketeering, what she actually has been discussing with the prosecution so far, it has outlined racketeering. She has gone into great detail I'm gonna bring some up here where she actually went into names of individuals about who were involved. So they asked, who would keep tabs on you? We didn't live far apart. He'd send security come find me, or a trusted assistant like you. David James, Christina Kovram. Was their relationship exclusive? And then she went and say no. But like I said, like that's not the only time where she's identifying. There was also bad boy manager James Cruz, who she acknowledged had played a part. She said that he was managing her at the time, but he was always checking in with Sean, which was P. Diddy. So she's outlining where they're using the organization, the record label, all of his business acclimate and his business ventures to facilitate these crimes in which he's getting sex workers, which, like I said, they had an male escort on the stand, who I feel like his testimony was, it didn't do any harm or good to the case, I would say, because he kind of outlined it like he was getting paid for it, but he would have did it for free for the most part because he was wanted to be next to them and be around them. So he just kind of outlined who Diddy was going after. If you guys would be a willing participant, if you could, perform on command for the most part, you were going to get paid and do what you had to do for it. There was one part where the male escort actually talked about a time where he heard Cassie get beat to the point where he couldn't perform afterwards. Like he was just so taken out of the situation because of what was going on. He said he didn't see anything, but he definitely heard it.
Yeah. There's during this trial, Cassie talks about multiple times in like multiple different states where Diddy was just beating her ass. And we had no idea, like we knew that like slightly what she was going through, but we had no idea the horrors that she was going through. Like I felt so terrible for her reading everything that she had to endure with him.
The sores in the mouth, where she said it was from so much oral sex, where she had sores in her mouth. She was having like painful burning UTIs, expected to perform during her period. Like it was intense and graphic stuff that she was outlining.
And she said she was at the at some point she was so stressed that she was sleepwalking and had PTSD, and she was sleeping with a knife.
Like this man Diddy is so disgusting. She even talks about a time where the gentleman climaxed. They get it out of her,
try to find the words.
Yeah, they get it out of her private areas.
Yeah. And
then she places the male juice onto his nipples.
Yeah.
And at one point, I guess the gentleman didn't climax to the way that was sufficient to Diddy, where he went in looking for it. Like, where I need that. Where that juice at, boy? like for real.
I think being that freaked out should be illegal.
Yeah, like this, like somebody has to put him in like a straitjacket.
Where do we draw the line?
Like he has to be stopped. Like the individual that Cassie painted in just these 2 days of testimony is Diddy is the most vile and disgusting individual on the face of the planet.
Morally depraved as a motherfucker.
Like he has no soul whatsoever.
Yeah.
There's nothing in there but a husk of human goonery. Like that's all he is after. I think we can get away with that. I'm not sure.
I think we can get away with that. That's why I said it. I thought about it and then I said it.
We'll see the yellow squiggles if necessary. But man, it's gonna be tough because the next thing that we kind of have to expect with the timeline, and when y'all seeing this, at least a clip of it, she's gonna be going through the defense and cross-examination.
I'm not looking forward to the way they're probably gonna. Well, they're definitely gonna drill her.
Oh, for sure.
And try to poke holes in her story and make her seem like a willing participant instead of a victim.
Oh yeah, they're definitely gonna go down because there were some things that she even said with the prosecution where she discussed why she was doing certain things and talking about, she did say that she feared for her life and the fact that his anger was something that was very bothersome to her and problematic. But she also said she loved him.
Yeah.
And there's videos out there showing them around these times where her smiling and things of that nature. And it's unfortunate how ignorant people are on like the effects of domestic violence, what it happens and how the brain operates from it. Like I say this a lot of times when we talk about this, but it breaks people. Like a lot of those times when we're watching people who are victims of domestic violence in those situations, they are broken individuals and they're talking about a time when they were broken. Like they could not think rationally, because anybody who's thinking rationally, something like that happens to you, you're going to want to separate yourself from it. So to go back to it plays a part of like, there is a psychologically damaging effect that this had. And then you take into account that it happened so young for her.
Yeah, she was super young.
She was still developing as like a formative years of being a woman.
So she was also like, not only was she in fear for her life because he was dangerous and he was powerful and physically violent, she also didn't have the means to like live her own life the way she wanted to. Like
and even if you want to play,
he was controlling everything.
And even if you want to play into the whole, oh, she wanted this lifestyle, she wanted all of this that's going, that comes with it. Even for that to be part of what she has to do to obtain it, shows like the manipulation that's going on. Like, why would she want to go back to anything else if she's living in this privilege and all it takes is this secret essentially at the time?
And according to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, it takes 7 times for a victim to try to leave before actually leaving and staying away.
Mm-hmm. But then,
that's on average. It might be more, it might be less, but you know what average means.
Like today, she even talked about the whole situation with Kid Cudi and the fact that
that was crazy that all of that was actually confirmed. So it's confirmed that Diddy dangled somebody off a balcony too. We don't know who it was.
We know who it was.
Who was it?
Allegedly Wale.
Oh my goodness.
That's why he said it was preposterous in the interview recently this week, that was him, but he just don't want to get subpoenaed. We exactly know why you.
Is Kid Cudi gonna get subpoenaed?
I can imagine. I mean, if they needed to, but I don't know. Well, yeah, that could be part of the racketeering.
But Diddy blew up that man's car because Cassie was
allegedly
having a relationship with him, allegedly.
And then also they talked about Drake and how he thought that she was having a relationship with Drake, where she went up to Toronto and he assaulted her there too. And she said beat her up to the fact that she couldn't even perform at the place that she was booked at up there. Yeah.
There were several points where he beat her up to the point where she had to just go into hiding because she couldn't show her face.
Yeah.
So, and then there was another thing I wanted to bring up. Damn, I forgot.
Well, I'll just highlight the prosecution hasn't been the best. I think there's a lot of areas where they could, tighten up. Because what they got to understand is any kind of wording that isn't being solidified or it hasn't been a picture painted for, that is where the defense is going to go in and attack.
Yeah.
And they're going to ask to be specific, and they're going to do it in a bad faith way. So that's why you want to get those kind of conversations happening under your terms, because once they bring it, it's going to be a lot of heat. The only thing that they have for the prosecution that's kind of going to be on their side is the fact that she's a pregnant woman up there on the stand.
Yeah. And then also from Cassie's testimony, we learned that the settlement that she got from Diddy was $20 million, because we didn't know exactly how much money that was.
Yeah, it was talked about it being $30 million.
She got a hefty dollar.
Yeah, I mean, she doubled what she was asking for to not release the book. So
no, she asked for $30 million to not release the book. She said that
30?
she threw. Yeah,
okay.
She said she just threw that number out because she felt like that was a fair amount, and then they landed on 20.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the rumor was it was $10 million for the book, then $30 million for the settlement, and then I guess they ended up paying. That's what I thought it was. They ended up paying $20 million.
From what?
Because that was they were saying, like, she wanted $10 million from him, and he didn't want to pay her, and that's what made her go and do the court.
From what I saw, she wrote the book, brought it to him, said, I want $30 million for this not to come out. He was like, this is not going to affect me whatsoever. And then she turned around and filed a lawsuit and then got $20 million.
Yeah. And another reason people too, I want to say, because everybody's been trying to like poke holes at Cassie and try to paint her as this
what
monster.
holes are you poking? You saw this man drag her down the hallway. And by the way, she was trying to leave a freak off early. Yeah. And that's what he did. So also you could fully just paint the picture that like she couldn't just willingly get up and leave, because he would beat her up if she tried to. She had to stay.
Yeah, but I mean, they're going to find particular ways to try to paint her as being an accomplice too. That's what's going to be what the defense is going to do all tomorrow.
Yeah. I wonder, is Young Miami going to be subpoenaed? She's not in this, is she?
Well, she was named in some of the other documents, but I believe a lot of those were just civil cases that were thrown out. But what I was going to say about Cassie was, where people say like the timing of why this happened when it did, there was a law in New York that had recently come into effect that allowed people who were victims of assault to then go after their perpetrators after years and years of, you know, what happened to the statute of limitations would have normally been passed. So,
Yeah, and we talked about that when we initially talked
Mm-hmm.
about Cassie's civil suit and why she filed it in the first place and why
Yeah.
she was able to do that.
but you know, people don't remember all that. So
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to stay onto this case. We're going to definitely talk about other victims. Hopefully, victim number 3 shows themselves, because they said that was a vital piece in their case, and they still have yet to find where they're at. And it looks to this point right now they're not going to be testifying. So that's crazy.
I wonder what's happening with like all of the underage people that the civil suits that he's been accused of essaying and stuff like that.
A lot of the ones that weren't substantial. Like I heard, like the Little Rod, one, all of them have been thrown out. So I think it kind of proves the case of maybe a lot of these were being put into the ecosystem to try to make people think like, oh, this is just crazy. They're trying to throw them under there, where the ones that have been paid are the ones that have been pushed under, and they probably aren't testifying.
Okay.